Hello and welcome once again to RWR Plays TEW 2020. This is chapter 28 of WCW Lives On, where we're playing as WCW in 2001 as run by Eric Bischoff, as if Fusion Media Ventures bought the company instead of WWE in the early part of the year, creating this alternative history that we're playing through now in this series. And we've got today for you another TV taping of a Nitro and a Saturday night as we're on the road to Halloween Havoc. We're now into October of 2001, so we're very much on the road to have Halloween Havoc. Before we go through what happened last time on the show, a little bit of news. So you may remember I was looking at the possibility of signing Glenn Jacobs for WCW. His contract with WWE was coming up. Glenn Jacobs, of course, being Kane in the WWE. Unfortunately, he rejected our advances because he decided that we were too small. Now, I also told you about last time that New Japan were interested in Glenn Jacobs. Well, in addition to them, CMML and AAA also joined the race to sign Jacobs, but the news came through just recently that he'll be staying with WWE. So hopefully, given all the interest that was in Jacobs from various different parties, WWE have had to raise the amount that they're going to be paying him more than they wanted to in the first place. So again, that eats into their budget to potentially retain other talent, and that's quite important because we have just put in a bid for another WWE star whose contract expires at the end of November. Now, I won't tell you who that is yet in case we land their signature, but it will be a challenge, to be honest, especially given the financial constraints that are being put on us by Brian Bedell. So we've put a bid out there. It's currently their favoured bid, but it's early days. I mean, we literally did it earlier on this Monday. We've put that bid in, so we're going to see what happens. I'm almost certain that WWE will up their bid, and they may price us out of going for the person at the same time. But what we'll see, we'll keep an open mind, and we'll hope that we can secure this signature, because I think it'll be a really good addition to the company. So as I promised last time on the show, the key happenings from the TV taping. Well, the main one was that Bill Goldberg was attacked at the hands of Totally Buff following his disqualification win over Buff Bagwell in the main event of the show. Luger and Bagwell powerbombed Goldberg through a pair of chairs that they had set up in the ring after the match, leaving Goldberg lying as the show went off the air. Also last week, Kevin Nash and Booker T got into a confrontation that has resulted in this week's Nitro main event between the pair, and the Cruiserweight Grand Prix got underway with 4 men making it through on Nitro and Saturday night. Another 4 first-round matches are set to take place on this next TV taping. Also last week, Sean O'Hare wanted to get his hands on his former partner Prodigy, but was denied a match with him, so instead took Shane Douglas up on his open challenge, and with the help of Ric Flair defeated Douglas in what is being called the biggest win of his career thus far. We also saw Scott Steiner blaming Kurt Hennig for him not winning the lethal lottery and promising that Hennig was a marked man. Finally, we also saw WCW champion Jeff Jarrett announce the raffle of opportunity for a title match with him at next week's WCW 13th anniversary show. However, after 3 questionable draws, Mike Sanders confirmed that due to the issues with the picks that were made, the raffle of opportunity was closed and that there will be no title match at the 13th anniversary. So all that took place 2 weeks ago. One more thing before we get into today's TV taping. If you've been enjoying the series up to this point, give us a subscribe. Click the button down below, and that will be really very helpful, and we'll be very, very grateful for that. So without any more ado, let's get into today's show. And for this week's TV taping, we're in the Centrum Arena in Utah. And this is we start with a dark match, Team Canada versus Ernest Miller and Ice Train, and as you might expect, Team Canada get the victory in 7 minutes and 39 seconds when Lance Storm pins Ice Train, a segment rating of 62. Ice Train obviously the weak link here, struggling to keep up with the performances of everybody else. Ernest Miller, though, is also dropping in terms of his performances because we've used him largely as a jobber, but Mike Awesome and Lance Storm are both performing really, really well, and I think we've done a good job with them so far in the save. So that's the dark match. Now we go into Nitro proper. And immediately following the opening titles and music, the camera focuses immediately on the ring where Eric Bischoff is stood next to a table with a sheet over the top of something on the table. Bischoff says that next week we will all be celebrating the 13th anniversary of World Championship Wrestling with a special episode of Nitro. He says that already booked are the first 2 quarterfinals in the Cruiserweight Grand Prix. He also announces that there will be a special 10-man battle royal for a shot at the United States title at Halloween Havoc, which will involve only former US champions. He says that he also has a very special treat, and it is at this point that he lifts the sheet on the table to reveal another tombola machine. Bischoff says that last week he was impressed with Jeff Jarrett's idea and was very disappointed when the whole thing was called off due to contractual issues. He says that he spoke to the WCW Championship Committee last week and they agreed to hold a whole new raffle of opportunity, and here in his pocket is a new contract with only one tombola draw allowed. Bischoff says, however, that he's confident his draw will yield a contender. He says that one lucky man will receive a world title shot against Jeff Jarrett next week to help make WCW's 13th anniversary very, very special. He then spins the tombola and picks out a name, which he then reads and reveals to the camera, and it says Conan as Bischoff announces it to the live audience as well. Bischoff says that it's official. Next week, Jeff Jarrett will defend the world title against Conan. So, segment rating here of 69. Eric Bischoff announcing the main event for the WCW 13th anniversary special of Nitro, which will be Jeff Jarrett and Conan for the world title. The first match of the night sees Chavo Guerrero Jr. overcome Aguilar in 9 minutes and 46 seconds by submission in another first round Cruiserweight Grand Prix matchup. Chavo Guerrero and Aguilar both had a performance over 50, but the segment rating was 44, and you can see here the crowd were turned off by having a match outside of the pre-show between workers they don't have any investment in, which is a shame that that's where Chavo finds himself currently. But again, we've not really used him in a really big way, and I've got a confession to make. I struggle with Chavo. I've always struggled in terms of how you use Chavo, because I think he's a decent, if not kind of exceptional wrestler, and he's also, in my view, not a particularly kind of charismatic guy. I mean, he can cut a promo, but I don't think he's particularly skilled at it. So yeah, not somebody I have a huge vision for what to do with usually, and that's probably why he's not been used much up to this point in the save. Next up, Tony Schiavone welcomes his... So I'm going to interrupt myself here, because you can see here Teddy Hart is here on screen. It shouldn't be Teddy Hart. This is supposed to be Tony Schiavone. I've clearly put Teddy Hart in instead of Tony Schiavone, not noticed, and then just clicked go and save, and so that's messed up. Teddy Hart should be Tony Schiavone, so just pretend that it's Tony Schiavone. He welcomes his guest at this time, Bill Goldberg, for a backstage interview. Schiavone says that last week we saw the WCW Tag Team Champions attack him and put him through a pair of steel chairs. Schiavone therefore asks Goldberg how he was feeling this week. Goldberg says that he's not going to lie, the attack hurt, but all it did was made him more determined to mete out the punishment. Schiavone asks whether he thinks he'll be able to mete out enough punishment to teach the tag team champions a lesson, and Goldberg says that he's pretty confident that he can, because he doesn't just want to cause them physical pain but also emotional pain as well, by taking what they care about most of all, the tag team titles. Schiavone then asks Goldberg to clarify whether he is in fact officially challenging Totally Buff to a match for the tag team titles, and Goldberg says that all he knows is that Totally Buff are next. So a segment rating here of 61. It might have been better had this been Tony Schiavone in the position of Teddy Hart, but maybe not, because actually it wasn't a terrible rating at all. But anyway, Goldberg kind of responding to the attack that he suffered at the hands of Totally Buff last week. The next match sees Terry Funk versus Nick Gage, and during the match, Gage once again goes out of the ring to achieve a steel chair, this time after the referee goes down, but before he can use it, Tommy Dreamer comes to the ring and snatches the chair off him. Dreamer points at Gage and tells him he can't use the chair, but Gage responds by flipping him the bird. Dreamer swings the chair at Gage, but he ducks and the chair hits Funk. At this point, the ref recovers, Gage covers Funk, and Dreamer watches on powerless as Gage takes a victory, a very big victory over the legend that is Terry Funk. A segment rating here of 35. Funk was a 44, Gage an 18. Still seeing what we can do with Nick Gage, and I would imagine this victory in particular will really help his levels of popularity and notoriety. So a big win for Nick Gage. We're going to keep pursuing this for a little while yet to see if we can get any traction with Gage as part of this story. And I've got to be honest, week to week, I haven't got a long-term plan for this feud. I'm just watching it play out, and we'll see if it in the end amounts to anything. It may not, but it's at least a fun way to fill up some TV time. Next, we have Sharmell Sullivan backstage, and she welcomes Shane Douglas for an interview. Sullivan asks how Shane Douglas is feeling following his loss to Sean O'Hara on Nitro last week. Douglas snatches the microphone away from Sharmell and looks into the camera as he says, "This is a message I'm sending directly to Ric Flair. You and I have never seen eye to eye, but I was willing to keep my distance from you until we were drawn together in the lethal lottery. Even then, I was willing to work together for the good of both of us, but when you put your hands on the franchise, you crossed a line. But then you went even further and cost me a match last week on Nitro, and just as a side note, Sean O'Hare, I'll be coming back for that one after I'm done with Flair. So Flair, you better have eyes in the back of your head, because when the franchise players are done with you, you'll feel like you've been run over by a train." Douglas then walks off and shoves the mic back in the hands of Sharmell as he does so. Segment rating here 53. Sharmell Sullivan was good. Shane Douglas was also good, but I would have thought, given that they both performed well, that this would have been a slightly better rating. But anyway, Shane Douglas cutting a promo on Ric Flair here. In the next match, Curt Hennig faces Kanyon, and Curt Hennig gets the victory in 9 minutes and 30 seconds by pinfall. A segment rating of 54. Curt Hennig in-ring performance of 61. Kanyon is 62. So the segment rating could have been better if the game thought that Hennig was actually a babyface, as he is. Still, the game thinks he's a heel, and I may try and address that with the game. I may try and turn Hennig, give him an artificial turn so that the game realizes he's a babyface. The problem with doing it is that usually you need to build over time the turns. Sometimes you can do a sort of instant turn and out of nowhere turn, but often you kind of need to build it. And also, if the turn doesn't go well, the talent can become disappointed. So I just need to be careful. That's why I haven't really addressed it up until this point, because I figured I could just live with it. But it is starting to get on my nerves, so I may try and change that soon. Now, after the match, as Hennig is celebrating his victory, Scott Steiner appears from behind and attacks him, trapping him in the Steiner recliner. The commentary team bring up that Hennig has had a history of back problems throughout his career, stretching back over a decade, and the damage being done here could be career-threatening. After a few minutes, officials and referees manage to get Steiner off Hennig, but it appears that the damage has already been done. So a segment rating here of 76. I thought this was a really good angle. Steiner performed fantastically, and the angle got the crowd hotter, as Steiner promised Curt Hennig would pay for what he did at the Lethal Lottery, and indeed here it appears that Hennig has indeed paid. The next match is a little bit of a squash. John Cena versus Alpha Jr. and John Cena winning in 5 minutes and 25 seconds by pinfall. Crowd turned off by having a match, blah blah blah, that they don't have any investment in. A segment rating of only 9 though, that's really poor, despite John Cena's performance being a 36 and Alpha Jr. being an 11. And I thought the reflected kind of popularity of Jeff Jarrett alongside John Cena at this point in the Jarrett administration would mean that Cena meant more to the audience, but unfortunately at this point still not. Whatever the case, Cena gets the victory here over Alpha Jr. Alpha Jr. really just being used as squash talent now. I don't really have any plans for him, and I should imagine when his contract comes up in a couple of months' time, we will not be renewing it. So after this, Jeff Jarrett immediately gets into the ring after having watched John Cena defeat Alpha Jr. He takes the microphone and says that he doesn't know where Eric Bischoff gets off treating the WCW World Champion in the way he has treated him. He says that it's wrong of WCW to put him in a position where he has to defend his title with just 1 week's notice. He says that he has instructed Mike Sanders also to file an intellectual property violation against Eric Bischoff and WCW for the use of the phrase raffle of opportunity, and he says he's going to pursue them through the courts until he is compensated for it. He says that no matter what's done is done. Next week he will beat Conan and show WCW what they are dealing with. So segment rating here 59 as Jeff Jarrett responds to Bischoff's decision or his kind of assertion that Jarrett will defend the title against Conan next week on Nitro. We next have a 6-man tag match which sees Sean O'Hare and the European Union against the Gothic Collective, and is won by the Gothic Collective when Prodigy pins Alex Wright after using a foreign object. In terms of in-ring work, Vampiro was head and shoulders above everyone else. That's because he got an in-ring performance of 70. Jester was a 60, Sean O'Hare a 57, and Prodigy a 47. So we've got a little bit of work to do with Prodigy in terms of upping his popularity. Segment rating of 58 though, pretty decent this, and obviously a continuation of the feud between Sean O'Hare and the Gothic Collective. So we're backstage again, and Tony Schiavone is this time joined by Totally Buff for an interview. Schiavone asks them how they respond to the challenge put down earlier by Goldberg for a shot at the tag team titles. Bagwell laughs and says Goldberg must be going a little doolally because in order for Goldberg to challenge them for the tag team titles, he needs two things. First of all, Bagwell says that he needs a tag team partner, which he doesn't have. And then Luger follows up by saying that the second thing he needs is the right to call he and that partner the #1 contenders to the tag team titles, which he also doesn't have. Luger tells Schiavone to come and talk to them again when he's got something to ask them that makes sense, as Totally Buff walk away. So a segment rating here of 62 as Bagwell and Luger basically push back on Goldberg's sort of challenge type thing of going after them for the tag team titles. Bagwell performed really well, Schiavone and Luger not so well. So the penultimate match of the night is another in the Cruiserweight Grand Prix first round. It sees James Maratati win against Kaz Hayashi in 7 minutes and 39 seconds after Johnny the Ball drops Hayashi throat first onto the guardrail while the referee is distracted and then rolls him back into the ring, allowing Maratati to get the pin. Maratati had an in-ring performance of 47, Hayashi at 55, but unfortunately the segment rating only 43. And again, fans just not invested in these two guys. There's a lot of people on our roster at the moment that have got that low level interest in them that the fans just aren't that eager to see. So we're going to have to do something about that in general, but segment rating here 43 and it filled a gap, I suppose. Now before the main event, as Kevin Nash comes into the arena for his match with Booker T, before he can reach the ring, Diamond Dallas Page hops over the guardrail having been in the crowd and goes after Kevin Nash in a heated brawl. The pair fight outside the ring as officials and referees try to split them up, eventually dragging Diamond Dallas Page away. So a segment rating here of 82. These two have got a really great heated rivalry going on at the moment as DDP attacks Kevin Nash before his match with Booker T. And that is next, and it is a match that goes for 18 minutes and 52 seconds and sees Booker T defeat Kevin Nash by pinfall. Segment rating of only 69, which is a disappointment given that Booker T had an in-ring performance of 74 and Nash an 81, and the match apparently suffering because there was not enough selling show. But nevertheless, that's a good enough main event for us to get what we need out of this show, including a increase in popularity. So that's the main event. Booker T gets the victory, and the show closes. And so yeah, that was Nitro. Now, as I say, this increased our popularity in everywhere that we need it to, which is fine. A little bit disappointed in a couple of places. Certainly the main event I thought might be a little bit better, and a couple of the Cruiserweight Grand Prix matches, both of them actually were both they underperformed. They weren't quite as good as I'd hoped they were. There was a lot of moments actually on the show where the individual ratings of the wrestlers just didn't amount to what I would expect. So that was disappointing, but overall the show was fine, and we move on to WCW Saturday night. Okay, so Saturday night now, and you can see the attendance for this TV taping of Nitro and Saturday night was 3,158 people, so that's a really good number. And Saturday night begins with another match in the Cruiserweight Grand Prix first round, and this one sees Air Paris defeat Sean Moore in 8 minutes and 6 seconds by pinfall. Segment rating of 31, and again Air Paris and Shannon Moore both performed better than the segment rating, but again it suffered because the crowd just were not into either of these two guys, which is a shame. And as I said, that does appear to be a general issue for us amongst a lot of the roster, which is a bit of a problem at this point in time. After this, we have Sharmell Sullivan introducing Tommy Dreamer for an interview backstage, and she says that Dreamer asked for the chance to talk, so the floor was his. Dreamer said that he asked to have the chance to speak publicly because he wanted to issue an apology to Terry Funk for costing his match on Nitro against Nick Gage. Dreamer says his only intention in coming to the ring on Monday was to prevent Gage using a steel chair, but he let his temper get the better of him. He then says that he wants to face Gage one more time, this time with no holds barred. So segment rating here 43, and again Tommy Dreamer coming out of this looking excellent, and Sharmell Sullivan not doing such a great job. It says here Nick Gage was on screen. He shouldn't have been on screen. He was just being talked about. Segment rating of 43 though, that's pretty decent as this feud continues. Then we have a tag team match as the American Mavericks take on Rob Williams and JJ Perez, a couple of local enhancement guys we picked up here just for this particular job. Again, the segment rating of 24 as the American Mavericks defeat Perez and Williams in 7:27. Harris and Storm both 34 and 35, and again even though Rob Williams was below the segment rating in terms of performance, in general, everyone was above it. So again, we've got a struggle here where we just have a lot of people that the crowd are not invested in. The American Mavericks, in fairness, I've dropped the ball a little bit with them over the last month. We've barely seen them, and I think, I needed to get them some victories again before we started to build them back up. So in the next segment, the commentary team throw to Sharmell Sullivan, who is now standing in Eric Bischoff's office. She says that Eric Bischoff asked her to come so that Bischoff could share an idea with everyone. Bischoff says that he heard what Bill Goldberg said on Nitro and Totally Buff's response. He says he has been looking back through recent results and can confirm that Totally Buff are correct. Goldberg is not a part of a team that is the #1 contender to the tag team titles, but he says that he could be. Bischoff has a knowing look on his face as he says that Goldberg and Jim Duggan picked up 2 victories at the Lethal Lottery, having luckily happened to have been drawn together as a team 2 rounds in a row. He says he thinks that the WCW Championship Committee might sign off on them as #1 contenders to the tag team titles if they can rack up, say, 3 more wins before Halloween Havoc. So he then announces that he has booked a match for them on the WCW 13th Anniversary Show Special of Nitro to face Kanyon and Bam Bam Bigelow, and if they can win that, he'll be giving them another match the following week. So segment rating here 57 as Eric Bischoff shares his idea for Bill Goldberg and Jim Duggan to potentially become the #1 contenders to the tag team titles and face Totally Buff in the future. The next match was a victory for Bobby Roode in 7 minutes and 35 seconds over Lenny Lane by pinfall, and he used the ropes for leverage. Roode was a 31, Lenny Lane a 36. Again, the crowd not particularly interested in these two, but we've given Bobby Roode, I think, 4 wins in a row now in singles matches. Obviously, he won the Hot Prospects tournament. It's got a segment rating of 27, which wasn't great, but I'm thinking with that kind of in-ring performance, Bobby Roode might be on the brink of becoming established a lot among the crowd, so we'll have to wait and see. Next up, Sharmell Sullivan is backstage with Cara Slice for an interview. Sharmell asks Slice about her match next week in the women's title round robin with the as yet undefeated Jazz. Slice says that she knows that Jazz has shown how tough she is to stop, but she says that no matter what happens, she will bring Jazz's 100% record to an end next week. So a segment rating here of 24. Sharmell Sullivan wasn't very good, but Cara Slice did a good job in the interview as she hypes up her match with Jazz in the women's round robin tournament next week. And so the main event of the show was another in the Cruiserweight Grand Prix tournament, and this one saw AJ Styles defeat Elix Skipper in 13 minutes and 20 seconds by pinfall for a segment rating of 46, which is not bad. And AJ Styles here had an in-ring performance of 49, so you can see he is definitely improving. Elix Skipper only a 33, which is why the rating of the match itself wasn't as good as we'd have liked, but still pretty happy with this one as AJ Styles advances and becomes the last man to advance to the quarterfinal of the Cruiserweight Grand Prix. And that is the end of WCW Saturday Night, an overall rating of 43. No real problem with that. And we saw AJ Styles and Air Paris go through to the Cruiserweight Grand Prix quarterfinal, where they, of course, joined James Maritato, Chavo Guerrero Jr., and the 4 men that won first round matches last week as well. And that is everything from this week's TV taping dealt with. All of the news, all of the happenings for this show. Not the most amazing couple of TV shows we just did, but yeah, I thought a pretty good show nonetheless. Interesting here, so you can see here, well, this might reveal who I'm looking at. So you can see Eddie Guerrero is being looked at by CMML, so I can reveal now, yes, Eddie Guerrero is the person that we are looking at in terms of potentially signing. I'm not interested in signing Scott Hall, but WWF are apparently interested in him. Let's just have a look at what Raw did. So in terms of the show rating, 89, The Rock defeating X-Pac in the main event. Also had Kane defeating the Ultimate Warrior and William Regal in one of the strangest 3-way matches I think I've ever seen. And The Undertaker defeated Devin Storm. Kurt Angle defeated Randy Orton, who is debuted in the company way earlier than he did in real life, which is interesting. WCW though, feedback has been great, so happy with that. You can see a WWE extend the deal with Christian York. He was not somebody I was interested in. I don't think I even had him on my shortlist. Sly Scraper staying with the WWF. He's currently working for OVW, development talent. Sylvester Takai, there you go, that's who he is. Yeah, so that's all the big stuff going on. As you can see, Eddie Guerrero, though, is the person we are looking to sign. And it'll be interesting to see if we get into a real bidding war now with both CMML and WWF, or whether WWF just blow us out of the war, as they probably will be able to do given the money they are capable of offering. But it would be great to add It would be great to add Eddie Guerrero to the WCW roster again. He would be a massive, massive get for us. So that's everything from this week's show. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please give us a like, and as I said at the start of the show, give us a subscribe as well if you wanted to continue to follow along with the series. I am going to commit to going to at least to Starrcade. Hopefully we'll continue to go beyond that as well, but for the moment I'm just going to commit to getting that far, all the way to Starrcade. But yeah, hopefully we'll go on beyond that. But for now, thank you very much for watching.